No, when I went home, my dad said my teacher was okay. Well, your dad could have been telling you the truth, but your dad also could be telling you that which is not the truth. Hey, I know my dad. That is true. You may know your dad, but you may not know your dad. Whoa! Can you see what's happening? So every statement based on something else. And that something else is based on something else yet. And you can go on, and this is called infinite regression. What's the meaning of regression? You go backwards. So you start with a question, and then to that answer, there's another question. So you go back, and to that, there's another question. So you go back. And this is infinite, and there's no stopping place. Think. So if relativism really is there, you cannot even ask a question because the words that you're going to use to ask the question itself don't have a fixed meaning. How are you going to ask the question? And if you cannot ask the question, you cannot have any answer. No use going to school, college. No use. See what relativism does? It throws you off onto a tailspin of intellectual, intellectual road that leads nowhere. People have looked at it. Here's Michael Jubian. So it looks like any apparent suggestion of relativism is either self defeating, I hope you saw that, or else is not a real assertion, but something more like an empty slogan. It is not a philosophy. It is not a principle that we can grapple with and we wrestle with. Just say something and that's it. A slogan. To say it's true that nothing is true is intrinsically meaningless nonsense. The very statement there is no absolute truth is an absolute truth. Think, that statement by Paul Feyerabend just a little while ago. He said that in all stages of human development, all the ideas, that's an absolute statement. Let's go back if we can just to get that sentence here. There is only one principle that can be defended under all circumstances and in all stages of human development. It is the principle anything goes. Look at the words all, all. That's an absolute statement. So, in trying to describe relativism, he is making an absolute statement. You cannot have it any other way. So, relativism sits on an absolute truth and yet says there is no such thing as absolute truth. Look, if you're sitting on a big branch and you chop it, what will happen to you? You will fall. So that's what happens to relativism, it falls. So let's get to now where we had gone, and here we are. So relativism did not stand scrutiny. There were statements we could call facts, truth. So now we can look for truth. That's the reason why we looked at this, because they said you can't look for truth. But now we realize you can. There are some things known as truth, and we will look for that. So now the question is valid. Can we identify God? Can we look for the truth about the God that we said exists? Does he have a name? So where do we look for this? We look for it in literature, the literature that says that he is somewhere and that's his name. So let's take a break and think about what I've just said. And if you have any questions, go ahead and ask them, and we will then continue after that. By the way, I have not forgotten some of your questions. Uh, on the first evening, somebody had asked about whether the Islamic faith and other literature and the Sikh literature had some contradictions and discrepancies and gaps. And I said I would show you. I showed you one from the Quran. I will put a few more, at least one or two more, and answer that question. And yesterday's question was about the fossils that was found in Tanzania, the humans, and those humans fossils seem to suggest that there is a form in between earlier humanoid, they're called hominid forms, and modern humans. We will discuss that also later on. So I'm not forgetting anything, nor have I forgotten all the 20 or 30 questions that were sent earlier. We are going to address all of them. In fact, if you remember, we did address at least one of them, and that was the question of suffering and God. Yeah, we did. So if we are going to now look for the name and identity of this God, we have to look for, we have to examine the writings. And here, the writings, literature of antiquity. What's antiquity? Ancient writings. And you find, oh my goodness, how many of them? And this is only a small list of the big list that there is. How are you going to study all of them? Which one is it? Is it the God of Islam, which is Allah, of Judaism, Yahweh, or of Christianity, Yeshua, or of Hinduism, Brahma, or Shiva, Vishnu? Which one? So when I saw this list, I scratched my head and said, how are we going to study all of this? So when you're stuck, remember one of the ways we said we have an inquiring attitude. Or do you remember what's the first factor that will allow us to be stay in an inquiring atmosphere? Humility. So when you're stuck, be humble and go find out, ask somebody else. And that's what I did. I asked people, and I asked this person and that person, so many people. And you know what happened? When I asked a whole bunch of people, I realized that all of them will fall into one camp or another, very strangely. Here are the camps. Camp number one, it's called exclusivism. I call them exclusivism. This person, when I would ask, would say, oh, there are many religions, but don't bother about them. Only one is correct. And which is that correct one? Mine. So what would happen if two people say the same thing? But that's one camp. Don't bother about the big list. There's only one that's correct, mine. It's called exclusivism. The other camp, oh yeah, there are many religions, but don't bother about them all to check them all out. No, they're all the same. Stay where you are, you're fine. That's pluralism. Now I looked at these two, I realized I should check pluralism first, because if it is okay, I don't have to even look for God. I have something in my mind, and that's good enough because everything is the same, and I'm going to get there anyway. Whether this name or that name, it makes no difference. So I checked out pluralism first. All religions lead to God. That's what it says. They are different paths, but end up at the same final destination. So here's a statement from W.E. Hawk. God is in the world, but Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad are in their little closets, and we should thank them but never return to them. Get a little bit stuff from them, but don't go back to them, because we are looking at everything. How about this other statement? This is a Zen saying. Zen is the mystic form of Buddhism. And at the back of one of the Zen books, I saw this statement. To understand God is to listen. Listen to Jesus, Muhammad, and Buddha, but don't get caught up in the names. Listen beyond them. Listen to God's breath. Whoa, it does sound impressive and actually attractive. Yep, don't bother about the names. God's breath. That's what you're supposed to get to. Listen to them, but listen also beyond them. Get those two words, listen to them and listen beyond them. We'll come to that in a little bit. So pluralism recognizes not only the existence of other religions, but their intrinsic equal values. They are all equal. They are not only valid and true, but equally valid and equally true. Why is it saying that? Because it has to say that. If it's a claim of pluralism, then it has to make this claim so as to maintain its position. Because if it did not make this claim, then it will agree that there are unequal ones. One is a little better than the other. And if that's the case, then I will say, hey, I want the best. So pluralism has to state everything is exactly equal. That's what they're saying. So I asked, where did they get this idea from? Sorry. So I asked where they got this idea from. First of all, remember what I said? I said that they are making the claim that each is equal to the other, equal, exactly equal. So how can we say they are equal? The only way you can say it's equal to the other is if we can take both of them to the same place and check them out by the same reference point. Only then we can say they are equal, but there is no reference point. So to say that it is equal is not really uh, that which will impress an intellectual, rational thinker. You can't say they are equal unless you have a reference point. And also, remember that Zen saying? The Zen saying said, listen to Jesus and Muhammad, for example, but don't stop there, listen beyond them. So here is what I did. I said, okay, I will go and listen to Muhammad, for example. But when you listen to Muhammad, he will tell you, don't listen beyond me because I'm the last. I know about Allah and only Allah is correct. Don't go beyond me. And you go to Jesus, can I listen to you and beyond you? No, you have to listen only to me, not beyond me, because I am the everything. So the Zen saying is not really practical. When it says listen to them and also listen beyond them, you can listen beyond them or to them, but you cannot listen to them as well as beyond them, because when you listen to them, they will tell you not to go beyond them. So the Zen saying is out. I wondered where they got it from. So I went straight to the writings. And so I'm going to share with you what I found when I read the writings. And I read the 5 great world religions books to find out whether this was really true. And here's what I found. In Hinduism, this is from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9 and verse 18. It says, I, Krishna, am the goal, the upholder, the master, the witness, the home, the shelter, and the most dear friend. I am the creation and the annihilation, the basis of how much? Everything, the resting place and eternal seed. Let there be one scripture for the whole world, Bhagavad Gita. Let there be one God for the whole world, Sri Krishna. One hymn, one mantra, one prayer, the chanting of his name. That's Hinduism. How about Islam? There's more than one verse in the Quran, but chapter or surah 2, ayah 255, verse 255 is known as the coronation or regal verse of the Quran. It says, Allah, there is no God but He, the living, the self subsisting supporter of all. His are all things in the heavens and on earth. His throne doth extend over the earth. He is the Most High, the Supreme. Buddhism, this Lord, meaning Gautama Buddha, is truly the Arhat. Arhat means the person who has reached the highest level of attainment, fully enlightened, perfect in his knowledge and conduct, well gone, world knower. The next word is unsurpassed. Leader of men to be tamed, teacher of gods and men, the Buddha, the Lord. Did you notice something? None of them are saying, I am one and the other is equal to me. None. Here's another one. Judaism. For thus saith the Lord who created the heavens, who is God, who formed the earth. I am the Lord and there is no other. Christianity, no other name under heaven given among men by which we must be saved. So I did not find a single religion that claimed the others to be equal alternatives. Every religion claims itself to be the only way, exclusively correct. Not only did they make that claim, but also pointed to the faults of other religions. Here's an example. The Buddha held that this belief in a permanent self or soul is one of the most deceitful delusions ever held by man. What is he talking about? He's talking about the doctrine of the reincarnation of the soul, which is a fundamental principle of Hinduism. You shift transmigration of the soul from here to there. The body dies, but the soul still lives on. So, what is Gautama Buddha saying? The belief in a permanent self or soul is one of the most deceitful delusions ever held by man. So, he's knocking off Hinduism in a pretty bad way. How about Judaism? Understand that I am He, says Yahweh. Before me there was no God formed, nor shall there be after me. One sentence, and he has wiped off every other competitor from the field. Nobody is left standing, only he. How about Christianity? All who ever came before me are what? Thieves and robbers. But the sheep did not hear them. Those who came before me are thieves and robbers. How about Islam? Those to whom the burden of the Torah was entrusted and yet refused to bear it are like a donkey laden with books. Wretched is the example of those who deny God's revelations. Who is this talking about in the Quran, Surah 62, Ayah 5? What is this talking about? This is talking about the Jews and the Christians. They are like a donkey, they are wretched. Think of what they're saying. Pretty strong language. Each of them said, I am the one, and the other one, no, not at all. Each of them said they were exclusive. So if they're using words like donkey and wretched, thieves, robbers, deceitful, and godless state, how can pluralism say all are equally true? Can you have can you have a deceitful truth? No. So if one is deceitful, they can't be equally true. Can you have something that is wretched as well as good? No. So that if they're equally good, none of them can be wretched, but they're using the word wretched. Can you have a valid donkey? No. So pluralism is making claim that that's diversifying, going to opposite camps. It is not stating the truth, my friends. There cannot be pluralism. Pluralism is stating things that are so contradictory that a rational thinker will have to say, hey, wait a minute, something is wrong here. So the written codes and sacred writings clearly claim exclusivity. You saw that. Every one of them claims to be the only way. But then every religion is not the only one. Every religion is saying the same thing. So all of them are saying the same thing. We found definitely that pluralism does not appear to be an established idea in the writings. But we have so many of them saying the same thing. I am the only way. How many champions can you have at one time? Only one. Wait, look away. Wait a minute. You can have only one queen of England. The others are princesses. Only one queen. You can't have three or four queens at the same time on the same throne. So if you're going to say you're the only way, well, then you're making a claim of being the only one. But if two of them are making the same claim, hey, then we have a problem. We have to look at this now in a rational, logical way. So if more than one is making a claim, how shall we look at that? Multiple claims for being the only way. Number one option, all are correct. Do you think that's okay? No, it's absurd. You cannot have more than one who is saying they're the only way. Number two, all are wrong. That's not absurd. All of them could be wrong. That is true. But really, how are we going to check that out? I couldn't. That is the reason why. To say anything is wrong, you should know what is correct. Only when you have that which is right in your hand can you compare that with something and say the other thing is wrong. But we don't have that. We are just inquirers right now. Remember what we said? We are not believing inquirers. We are not disbelieving inquirers. We are neutral inquirers. So we don't have it in our hands. We are still inquiring. So when we are inquiring, there's no way you can say anything is wrong. So how can I go, for example, to Muhammad and tell him, sir, I agree you are great, but I think you are wrong. How can I say that? Can you go to Jesus and tell him, Jesus, you had a nice sermon on the mount, but I think you said it all wrong? No, we can't do that. I have no authority, no knowledge, no position to call any of them wrong or even one of their attributes and doctrines wrong. The other thing that I found blocked me from saying they are all wrong is the fact that if they're all wrong, well, then all of them said there was something known as the supernatural God. And if they're all wrong, I'll have to throw that out, but I can't, because in our first session itself, we settled that there is God. So if they're all saying there is God, I can't throw them all wrong, throw them out. They are not all wrong. So because of these two or three reasons, I realized it is really not reasonable. I don't have grounds to throw them all. So if they're not all correct, and if they're not all wrong, then there's only one option left. There's only one legitimate and correct claim when it says it is the only way. Think. Look at all the three, and I want you to think for yourself. There are at least two of these claims saying they are the only way. If two are saying that, then these are the three options. Actually, not two, we saw at least five of them. All are correct, we can't say that. That's absurd. All are wrong, we have no grounds to say that. We are left with only one option. That among them all, there's only one that is correct when it says, I am the only way. It's a crucial, amazing, pivotal conclusion that I came to. There's only one religion that can make a legitimate claim of being the only way. You know, when I came to that, I was struck. If this is the case, then it seemed to be very clear and strong, but it also was very, very frightening. And why was it frightening? Because what if I'm not on that way? Unlike what pluralism said, you can just stay where you are. No, you got to find that because there's only one. And what if I'm not on that one? I had to make sure. So, how do you do that? And that was what I started out on by saying fundamentally, this is a fundamental understanding. There is one and only one way. So, when you come to that, you have to ask yourself, what is the significance when you say there's only one? There are a few here, and we will go through them all. First of all, it's a conclusion that was reached by a neutral person like me and you. We went through it step by step. We were not trying to push it down, we're not trying to pull it up. We just found it by looking at the writings, that means information, and using simple, ordinary logic. Information and logic. Remember, that's what we said we would use. We came to this by a neutral person. Once you come to that, you recognize pluralism is out. The claim of pluralism will not stand. In other words, it does not stand either information, it does not stand logic. So it has to go. Then, number three, it has a strong application to the followers of different religions. For example, if you're a Muslim, you cannot espouse pluralism because you will have to first disown Allah and the Quran, dismiss them. Then you can go to pluralism. If you're a Christian, you cannot even espouse pluralism in for a minute. You will have to discard all the words of Jesus who said, I am the way. And then you can go to pluralism. So once you come to pluralism, whoever you are, whichever belief system you are in, you cannot go to pluralism. You have to just stay right there. We are going to stay at least in our place of inquiry right now. It's also a fundamental claim. What's the meaning of fundamental? It forms a foundation. What happens if the foundation is not there? The building collapses. So here's what we are saying. If you claim, this is a religion now, if the religion claims that it is the only way, and it is not the only way, then it is no way at all. In other words, you can say what you want, but we will believe you only if what you say is in line with the correct one. Because then the correct one, the only way, becomes the reference point. Everyone else, you can say what you want, but if you agree, only we will listen to you. If you disagree, you are wrong. That's the meaning of fundamental claim. If you are not the only way, I cannot look to you at all for really the way that I want to go. Number five, it is the most powerful motivating claim that anybody can make. You know why? Because all these religions, they have two or three basic things that are the same. They look at the world, our lives, and they say something is definitely, drastically wrong. It's bad here. We need to get from here to there. Heaven, paradise, nirvana. We need to get there. And from here to there is absolute necessity. We have to get there because here it's horrible. It's going to end up in disaster. So we have to get there. And I'm telling you, says each religion, I am the only way to get there. So what happens if you're in a high rise building in an office and suddenly the whole office is in flames, burning up? You want to get out and you can't because the lower floors are burning. And at that moment, a fireman just dashes into your room and says, Hey, anybody here? Follow me. I know the only way out of this building that will keep you safe. What will you do? You will pull up your bootstraps and just dash after him. Why? Because he said that's the only way. Only way out of what? Out of this burning situation. In other words, out of this bad situation. So when a person says this is the only way, he is asking you to please follow this way. In other words, this is the most motivating claim I can give you by saying this is the only way. Got it? So every religion tells you it is the only way out of the burning, out of the water, out of the troubles that you are in. To get there, heaven, paradise, nirvana, this is the only way. Now, number 6 is what we're going to look at. It dictates the type of the search that we will now do. Because we're not just going to look here and there and say, hey, I don't know which one it is. No, we already started by saying there's one. So once you say there is only one, it does dictate how you will do the search. And here's what we're going to look at. If only one option is the legitimate way, how far ahead of the other should it be to claim the only way status? In a 100 meters Olympic 100 meters dash sprint, how far ahead is the actual gold medalist? He can be ahead by 0.001 second, and he's the gold medalist. Nobody else is world champion, Olympic champion, only he. You may have run very well. You were only 0.00 second behind him, but you are not the champion. So the champion, is the only one, need not be miles ahead. Itty little is ahead. How else can we identify this person or this claim or this religion? Does it have to be out in front? Now we are stuck with something else. Can we compare apples and oranges? These different religions, one is here and one is there. Can we put them together? The question is apples and oranges. Can we compare them? No. That's why the statement is there. Can you compare apples and oranges? Because you cannot. Why? Because there's no universal standard by which you can bring an apple and an orange and put it there and say, oh, orange is better. No. They are two different things belonging to two different positions. So you cannot bring them together. But here's a question, my friends. Can we choose? We cannot compare immediately, but can we choose? Do you know something? Yes, we can. I'll give you an example. Suppose you really gave me a choice, and this is an example, illustration. If you gave me a choice between an apple and an orange, I will immediately choose the orange because I like oranges. Apples, yeah, okay, but oranges, whoa, I'd go and pick the orange. All right. So if you gave me a choice, apple and orange, I'd pick it. Why? Because I like it. But somebody else, he likes an apple. So when you give him the choice, he will straight go for the apple. So if given the choice between an apple and an orange, because we really can't compare, anyone can choose either of them. But here's another situation. I am given the choice between an apple and an orange, but there's something else I see. The apple is fresh, sweet, juicy, bright red. Oh, beautiful. And the orange, which I like, which I would have easily picked, hey, it is rotten through and through, with worms sticking out their head through holes on the skin of that orange. You tell me which one I would choose. I like oranges. I would choose the apple because I'm hungry today. I'm not going to go looking for the orange that is rotten and has worms in it. Did I choose between an apple and an orange? Yes and no. I chose between an apple and orange because that's all there was, apple, orange. But at that point, I did not choose between an apple and an orange. Because if there was a choice between an apple and an orange, I would have chosen the orange. But today I chose the apple. Why? Because I had something else that was put onto apple and an orange, and it is called freshness and rottenness. I put those factors onto the two fruit, and when I put that, the choice became very clear. I had to choose the apple. Similarly, once you put some other factors onto the religions and their doctrines, we might be able to make a choice that everyone can see is reasonable. You will see it's reasonable if I chose the apple while the orange is rotten. Why? Because I put rottenness and freshness onto the table. So also we cannot compare the doctrines and tenets of belief of the various religions, but we can look for another factor and use that factor to compare it. For example, every doctrine in every religion came via a story. No message ever came from that side, from that up there to the human race without a story. Think about it. There's never a point in which this God spoke without a story. It was always within the story that he gave us tenets of beliefs and doctrines. So the doctrines are actually based inside the story. So suppose we look at the story and not the doctrines. That's what I decided. We must confess we cannot compare the various beliefs and doctrines in a true and legitimate manner because we have no universally agreed reference point. However, if we turned from the beliefs and doctrines to the stories which gave us the beliefs, we could evaluate the credibility of these, what I call para religious factors, factors beside the religious ones. They are there, but they're not the actual religious ones. They are para, the stories. You compare them. The questions regarding these factors will form the core of our process of comparison. Can you see what we are doing all this while? I'm giving you a picture of what I did and why I did it. It's extremely,
Yeah.
somebody's mic was on. Um, I lost my thought. Um, what were we saying? Para-religious factors, yes. We will go to them. And these questions we will ask, and they will form the core of our comparison. We're going to ask para-religious factors, not religious, and you will see them. So here's what we are going to do. First of all, find out how will we check them out. So if only one claim is the legitimate one, it need not be far ahead. We already saw that. The slightest lead would be sufficient to identify it. Further, superiority need not be the critical factor. If one is clearly unique, that one would be the only legitimate claim. For example, suppose we say that there is only one correct colored marble. What did I say? There's only one correct colored marble, only one. And in my hand, there are four purple, three blues, two greens, and one red. Which is the correct colored marble? It's the red, because we already said that there would be only one that is correct. And since red was the only single one, all of them had other The others with them, 4 purple. No, it can't be. We had already said that if it is only one, then that's the one. Now, look at the colors. Is red superior to green or purple or blue? No. But why did we choose it? Because we had already said there is only one. So if there's one that sticks out, that's the one. It doesn't have to be better or worse. It can be equal, but it has to be separate, unique. That's what we're going to do. So we're going to inspect the stories to look for the red marble. And we're going to use the 10 questions that will help us. And remember, these are 10 that are para-religious. In other words, anyone can do it. You don't have to be a believer in that religion to ask this question. In other words, you can't be, because we're going to ask the question of 5 great world religions: Hinduism, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, and Christianity. What we're going to do is take these 10 questions one by one over the next few days, ask the question, and then go to each of these religions and ask them to answer the question. And when they ask the question, all we will do with their answers is simply place it on the table and see what happens. We're not going to pull one down, up. We're not going to push any down. Just ask the question, get the answers, and place it on the table and see what happens. So that is what we are going to do. And here are the 10 questions we're going to ask. What is the type of literature, the writings? Does it allow to test for authenticity? What is one top feature of that literature? And then we go to the founders. What is the highest claim the founder makes for himself? What was his message and mission to the world? How did he say it? Does his life record match his own teachings? In other words, did he live the message, or did he just say the message and live any old way? That was a acid test, the real test. And then we ask, what were the stories around his birth? What was the length of ministry that he had? What happened at the point of his death? What were the circumstances at that time? And number 10, what happened immediately after death? So when we finish all these 10, we will try to see whether we've got a clear picture of a red marble, unique by itself. So question time now. We'll throw it open for questions. By the way, once we finish, for example, we finished 3 sessions, you can ask any question relating to 1, 2, and 3. You don't have to stick to only today. So first day, second day, and today as well. Try to make it focused on these. But if you have any other questions as well, you may ask and we will jot it down, and we may not answer it or respond it today, but we will respond at some time. So questions.
So, okay, guys, we have the chat also. So in case you want to ask questions, you can write it on the chat, or you can even raise your hands up so that we can call you. Thank you.
Are there any questions already asked on these topics while I was speaking? There was one hand. It says Kwame raised hand.
Yeah.
So I think there is one question here. Okay, Kwame just raised the hands, but I think later I'll read one question that somebody just posted. So Kwame, you can talk, please.
Okay. My question is, you made mention of the word Torah. You understand it in one of the quotes.
One moment, before you answer. Sometimes I will ask you to go a little slower. It's not that I want to block you.
Yeah.
My hearing is a little bit impaired, So can you speak a little slowly so I get all the words? Yes. What's your
Okay.
question?
You made mention of the Torah
Yes.
in your presentation. Is it the Hebrew Torah or something else?
Is there any other Torah? There is the Babylonian Torah and there is the Palestinian Torah, actually parts of the Torah, but there's only one Torah. And that is what they study, and it's called the Talmud Torah. But the Torah is the 5 books of Moses. That's it. It doesn't refer to anything else. So there's no other Torah. There's only one Torah.
So is that what the Quran, chapter 62.5 refers to? Is that what Quran 62.5 refers to?
Say that again. What is the 62.5 refer to?
Those to whom the burden of Torah was entrusted.
Yes, the Quran is referring to the first 5 books of Moses.
Oh, okay, thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you. And there is Catherine. Catherine is asking a question, and the question is: the aging of Earth has explained by you. Does this apply to the other galaxies, such as Mars?
Galaxies. Just say that. Yeah. I didn't get your words. They were breaking up.
Okay. The aging of Earth has explained, as explained by you. Does this apply to other galaxies, such as Mars and Sun, etc.? Creation happened at the same time as the book Genesis explains, as less than 10,000 years.
Okay, can I clarify the question? The question then is the creation only of this earth, or is it of other celestial bodies as well at the same time that is the subject of Genesis 1? Is that the question? I am guessing that's the question.
Because I think Catherine will be the right person to explain what she wants to clarify. So if Catherine is here.
Yes.
Okay. So please, can you ask the question? Yeah.
Yeah, yes, I just want clarification. The creation of the earth, as Dr. Pandit explained,
yes,
does that apply to all the galaxies?
Okay. All right. You mentioned Mars and the Sun.
Yes.
Mars and, all right. Good question. Again, we are thinking, and I like it when you think. So,
thank you.
All right. We need some little bit of clarification in the question again, but I'll clarify it right now. Mars belongs to our solar system, and the Sun also belongs to our solar system. We are in one Milky Way galaxy, so we are talking about only one part. There are millions and billions of galaxies outside. So Mars is not in another galaxy, it's in our own solar system. But your question is it only the Earth, or is it all the other celestial bodies that we see, stars and galaxies and everything happen at the same time? Here's some other example that I will give you. I mentioned, remember, the age of the Earth in terms of the silt being taken to the delta regions, and I said that the rivers have have been going only for 4,000 years. Well, that is the Earth. All right, let's go to the next one, which is the moon. Now, all celestial bodies, have dust, the interstellar dust falling onto them. All. And that's how the evolutionists say there are what's called the geological column, because those dust is falling and they form columns or levels. So we do know from observation and from other statistics and other calculations that there's a certain rate at which this stuff is falling onto all the celestial bodies as they go through space. So One of the reasons why NASA, when it sent its men to the moon way back in 1969, were afraid to send men to the moon was because they were afraid that the layer of dust would be so deep that the that the module as well as the astronauts would sink and die. The reason is because the calculation of the rate at which the dust is falling would make the layer of dust so big, because that was the calculation. Millions of years, billions of years. Oh my, that layer will be so big. But when they got to the moon, when Neil Armstrong stepped onto the moon, his boot did create a print on the moon of the moon dust. When they tested that, they found the moon dust was only 2 inches instead of yards and feet, and in fact, miles. When it's 2 inches, you calculate the 2 inches at the rate at which these dust is falling, then the 2 inches corresponds to less than 10,000 years.
Right.
So the moon is also 10,000 years.
Okay.
Earth is for 10,000. Now, when you look at the galaxies, there's something known as nebulae, not nebulae, it is when stars give out their maximum amount of energy and they collapse, supernova is formed. What's a supernova? It blasts out into a flashing, bright, brilliant event in the sky. We have seen this once every, I think there's more than one person who has their mic on. I hope so. If you can turn it off, because it's knocking me off. So when you look at the sky, astronomers have noted supernovae about once in 26 years in the sky. The Chinese were about the first to say that they got. In fact, the supernovae are so bright that you can see them in the daytime. You can't see any stars in the daytime, but a supernova can be seen in the daytime, some of them. So here's what I'm saying. When you look at what happens when a supernova event takes place, the sun just collapses in itself and explodes. When it explodes, it sends forth its particles into space. Those particles are now called remnants. Remnants of supernova are supposed to be seen, according to the calculation now, a scientific mathematical calculation, they should be able to be seen for hundreds of thousands of years and maybe even 1,000,000 years. So a supernova remnant should be seen in the sky for at least, let's say, 100,000 years, if not 1,000,000 years. So now when we look into the sky today, we look all over, in all directions. The supernova that is the oldest that we can see, that has the oldest remnants, is only 7,000 years old. We do not see supernova remnants more than 7,000 years old. So what are we looking at? We are saying that even the universe is less than 10,000 years old. Now, we cannot say for sure, but we are looking at the evidences that are there. So we saw an evidence on the earth, we saw an evidence on the moon, and now we see evidence right among the galaxies of the universe, and nothing shows more than 7,000 as far as these tests are concerned. So they do show that there are some evidences to say that it's less than 10,000 years.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We've got 2 more questions here, and I think one of them comes from last night's question. So it says, we had listened about the questioning of testing and dating old rocks. In 19th century, the long dating of the earth allowed deep time. What does Dr. Pandit or you think the age of earth actually is?
First of all, I'm a human like anybody else.
Okay.
So don't take my word. And if you ask me for what my belief is, I'll tell you my belief, but beliefs can be right or wrong. So, but you're asking for my opinion based on certain reasons, right? And like I said, when you do the actual testing and draw the line, like I mentioned, from here to 4.5 billion years over here, and divide it into three parts, and then look for evidences and put them into the three sections. When you do that and you look for the weight of evidence, then the weight of evidence points towards less than 10,000 years. So you can get any less than, say, 100,000 years. Anything that we said less than that points to the 10,000, because there's no other claim. There's nobody saying the earth is 50,000 years old. They're saying it's 10,000 or it's 4.5 billion. So when they say two huge numbers far apart, then anything in between can be pushed either to one side or the other. When you do that, the weight of the evidence is pointing towards not only the earth, but the universe itself, our universe, being less than 10,000 years old.
All right. I hope the person who asked this question is clear now. And the next question is that do Jews have Torah and other prophets' books? Do the Jews have Torah and other prophet books as we have in the Old Testament? That's the question.
Okay. The word we refers, I am thinking, to our group here. Yes, we got all our information from the Jews. We don't have any information of our own. So we got it from the Jews. The Jews said that there was a Messiah. Then the New Testament came along and pointed to Jesus as the Messiah. So we, in our beliefs, are called Judeo-Christian. So we're not knocking off the Jewish literature at all. But so here's what is the answer to yours? Of course, the Jews had three types of writings: the law, the prophets, and the writings. That is the whole of the Old Testament. The law is the first 5 books. The prophets are the prophetic books. For example, Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, those are prophetic books. Then the writings like Psalms and Proverbs, Song of Solomon, those are writings. So all three are in the Jewish literature. We take that. So we don't have anything different from the Jewish literature except to add to it the concept of the Messiah. Once you identify the Messiah, then if it is Jesus, then he said these words and these words and these teachings are found in the New Testament. So we put Old and New Testament together to form the Christian document of our scripture. So we have nothing more. Yes. So the Jews have the whole of the Old Testament. Christians have the Old Testament plus the New Testament.
All right, thank you so much. So we're still waiting for questions. So you can still raise your hands up or write it on the chat. Thank you.
Now, some of you did ask quite a few questions before. I have it listed out, but I would like to address those after we settle out the question of these different religions. Once we settle out that the Bible maybe is the book and Christianity is the way, then we will ask Christian questions. Okay, most of them were Christian questions, but I would like to hold them until we settle out whether this is the way we're going to answer. You know why? Because if we don't, then we are still going to ask, is it really true what you are saying? Whereas if you settle out, there is a God, number one, we can know about him, number two, and the Bible say is the way, or if you got the Quran, whatever it is, we are going to see. The Bible is the way, and if Jesus is the one who's written the Bible, then if we talk about the Bible, then we can say, okay, I'm stating something that is reasonably correct and credible. If we don't settle this, then no matter what you say will still be in question, because what if it is the Bhagavad Gita? What if it is the Quran? Then you're referring only to the Bible, makes no sense. That is why you must settle out first whether you got the right place, and whether it is Christianity, whether it is Buddhism, whether it's Hinduism, Islam, or whatever. So that is why we are going through these steps.
Okay, still somebody wants to ask a question, and the question is, what was your main motivation to become so wise?
What's the last word? What was my motivation to become?
So wise, wise.
WISE?
Yeah.
I didn't know I was so wise. That's a compliment. Thank you very much. But really, what you are asking is what prompted you to do this kind of search? That's a that's pretty good question. That there's a question that's on the screen here. Is that
Yes. We have another question also.
okay? I'll
And
complete this and then I will come to the question. Is that all right?
okay.
Okay. You asked me how it started. Well, like I said, I grew up in India. India has the largest Hindu population in the world. We also have the second largest Muslim population in the world. I mean, we have more Muslims than the whole Arabian Peninsula put together. Buddhism was born in India. There's Sikhism, Jainism. Do you know Christianity came to India in the very first generation of Christianity? Saint Thomas came to India. So in that crucible, if you're growing up there in the place where I grew up, it's a town called Pune in India, in the state of Maharashtra. There were all these people: Hindus, Muslims, Zoroastrians, Sikhs, Jains. So naturally, I had a question: why am I a Christian? So I thought about it for all my life until I finished my medical school. When I finished my medical school, then I started on a journey to find out if I could just ask my questions. You know why I had to wait that long? Because I'm going to confess to you that I thought if I asked any earlier than that, then the people would treat me as second class Christians. And that's, I know, a common fear among many. We don't like to ask because if we ask, they'll say, where's your faith? Do you really doubt Jesus? Of course, I doubted when I was growing up. I doubted whether Jesus was the way or whether Allah was the way. And I couldn't ask because I was scared. But after I finished medical school, I said, hey, I'm on my own, I can ask. So I started asking, and I asked all kinds of people. The first person I chatted with was a Hindu priest. Lovely, wonderful guy. We chatted a lot, back and forth. And by the time we finished our chats, he said, hey, we got to find this out. We got to check it out. And while he and I were checking out whether it's Hinduism or Christianity, somebody else, I told him, hey, what about Islam? So he said, whoa, 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 we have to do all of that then. And while we were doing all these religions, somebody else came and said, what are you doing? I said, we're trying to figure out which religion. He started laughing because he said, hey, there is no God. So now we had to figure out whether there is God first. So we started doing all of these questions back and forth. And look, friends, that is where the point of an neutral inquirer comes. I didn't want my own opinion to win. I wanted the truth. That is why I struggled so hard to push my own thoughts aside. And I said, let me do it as fairly as possible. And I hope you can see that at every stage, I'm trying to give you a reason, not just stating something. Give a reason so that it's clear that you're trying to be fair. Being fair will give you the biggest strength in the truth that you establish. If you are not fair, for example, if you bribed the referee for your football game and you won, hey, how big is that win? There's no win there. You keep the referee completely neutral, then you win. So if you are a completely neutral inquirer, then you do it. And that's how it took me, well, decades to do this search. It is not ordinary. I struggled with them. I read so much. I asked so many people. So that's your question. How did I start doing this? And if you are really interested, here's what happens. And it applies to even your own subjects in school, okay? And college and university. If you are really interested, it's not hard to remember the stuff you study. Yes. If you are really interested, what you read will just boom, just get inside and you will remember. That's why I remember so much. And that's why when I talk, people say you are wise. Actually, I'm not wise, I'm interested. And because of my interest, I remember so much of stuff. And because I did it for a long time. All right, next question.
Okay, that's really interesting. And the other question is also quite interesting, and is there is one YouTube viewer who is really following what we are sharing on YouTube, and the question is, I am not a Christian. How do I know which is the true religion, or what is the true religion? So that's the question.
Okay, I'm glad you're asking that, because that is the question I asked when I was way back there 40 years ago. I asked the same question. So I hope I'm trying to show you that when you ask a question and honestly become a neutral inquirer and go step by step, then I believe you will come to a point where the picture becomes clearer. Remember where we started. We didn't start with which is the correct religion. We started whether is there's a God, and we became honest and fair in our assessment. And when we were fair, we realized there's a God. And then we ask whether we can know any stuff, whether for example, whether the theory of evolution is really correct. Look, the whole scientific community agrees and espouses the theory of evolution. So why should anyone challenge that? The reason is because we are trying to figure out what is the truth of the matter. And when you look at it, it is not a scientific theory. Similarly, now we are looking at whether we can find out the identity of this God that we said exists. So over the next all these days that we're going to spend together, that will be our focus. So your question is excellent. How do I know whether Christianity or whether it is Hinduism or whether it is Islam or whether it is something else? And somebody said in one of the questions, I don't believe in any religion. I I think that's not correct. It's impossible not to believe in a set of principles that governs your faith. It's impossible. You do believe something. You do believe a set of principles that governs your life. Nobody can live without that. It's only a crazy guy who will go to the mental asylum who does that. We are not of that nature. We have a set. So if you are going to question Christianity, I'm asking you, have you questioned your own set of beliefs? Really, have you questioned it? Honestly questioned it? So now we have two. Is it Christianity or is it your own? When we look at both of them, look for the weight of evidence. And that's exactly what we're doing this whole searching time. We're looking for the weight of evidence. Remember, now we've changed the word weight of evidence to red marble. We are looking for the red marble. Is there anything that's unique? And from tomorrow, we're going to start that. So if you stay right through, I believe you will be given the reason. And then that doesn't mean you'll agree, but at least the reason is there for you to grapple and question and find out for yourself. There was one more question, I think.
Yeah, there is another question. And the person is asking or saying that the Bible talks about angels. And these angels came to earth and they gave birth with some ladies or some women. Is there a reason for that? And does that has an effect on modern humans? Should I repeat again?
I'm trying to figure out what the question really is. Are they doubting that the angels came? Or are they asking whether if angels come, can they come again to us? Or are they asking that when it came over then at that time, it does have an effect on us today? What is the question?
The person didn't really stated what he's trying to say. So if Mr. Gideon is on the line, I think he can break down what he wants to say.
Okay. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Pandit. I think we talked about, or you talked about evolution the previous day, but unfortunately I couldn't come onto the program. And so that's why I asked this question with regards to evolution. So my question is, I'm not doubting that angels came because the Bible says so, so I believe. But does it have any effect? I think it talked about some giants also. So is there any reason for that, for angels to come and give birth here? And does it have any effect in the modern day human?
So once again, is the question, what is really the question? What is the question that you have in your mind? Is it that you do not think there's a reason for them to come, or you do not know the reason that they came?
I do not know the reason they came. And
Because your question that is on the screen, and I read it, it says the angels came and gave birth. The angels
yeah,
didn't come and give birth to anyone.
okay,
The angels came and told Mary that she would have a birth, and also told Elizabeth that she would have give birth. But the angels never gave birth to anybody.
okay,
The angels are in between God and humans. They're in another level. They do not interact in that physical, intimate ways with humans, except non-Christian religions, they do. For example, the gods of the Greeks and the Romans, they do interact. In fact, humans marry gods and goddesses, and they marry backwards. And also, in the Hindu literature, you have humans interacting with the divine in that sexual manner, so that they do produce children, but not Christianity. In Christianity, angels do not interact in an intimate, physical, sexual way with any humans at all. So they don't give birth to anyone. Is there anything else about angels? Some people, I'll tell you the another people that another question people ask. They came in those good old days. Do they come now also to the human race and do things? In many parts of the world, that's a big question. But if you go to other parts of the world, it's very clear that the angels do come. There are clear stories in which they have come and spoken and helped people. And it's unable to be explained by anything in the natural realm of natural science. So I think they do. And I think God still has a great deal of very keen interest in what's happening to us and our world.
Okay, thank you. I think we have another question again. And it's still from somebody who is still watching on YouTube. And the question is, what impact does one's culture has on his or her ability to understand the concept of the existence of God?
Culture-wise, here's how I look at it. Actually, culture can be put aside if we don't use the word God first. So instead of using the word God first, we say we are humans at the plane of natural existence, finite, limited natural existence. So the question at that point would be, is that all there is in existence? Is it only our existence that we can see and feel and touch and have empirical evidence? Or is there anything beyond, known as the supernatural? So when you look for scientific evidences of the supernatural, then you do find evidence in science and in mathematics that beyond the natural, there is something known as the supernatural. So now the question is, if there is something called the supernatural, and we live in the natural, then we ask ourselves, where did we come from? And not just the question of where did we come from. We take a specific thing and ask, how do we have it here? If everything came from there, then whatever we have here came from there. If that's the case, then if we have a mind, then had to be a mind also. It's not just, and then it's not just a power that was in the supernatural realm. Some people say, yeah, we are here, but out there there's a power. No, there's no power only. If there's a power, that power has a mind, because only then we can explain our mind. If there was a mind there, we have a mind. And so if that's the case, then if there's a power there that has a mind, then we have to say that mind can think. So this is very different from any culture. The concept of God can be different because of the culture, but not a concept that there is something new, known as supernatural, in which realm there is that supernatural being that has a mind that lives there. That is above culture. In the culture, we can figure out what kind of God there is. Some people have it, 2 heads and 4 hands, and some of them have it huge, and some have it very small. Some have it very kind and loving, and some have it horrible and bad. So those things can be affected by a culture, but not the fact of God. Is that reasonable? I hope it is.
Yeah, I think so too. Thank you. So guys, we're still waiting for questions. So if anybody has got any, you can just raise your hands up or still write them.
There's a question on the screen, and that's a good one. Do you have the question?
Yes. So it's still this the person who asked the same question.
Yeah.
So he was saying the question I asked was based on Genesis chapter 6.
Yes. That's a statement where called the sons of God married the daughters of men. Yes. Now, for that, if you want to make a theory that the sons of God means gods, then you can try to do that, but it's not angels, definitely not angels. It doesn't say angels. Angels are not sons of God. Angels are called angels. So sons of God means something else. And when you look at what is happening at that time, the earth was dividing into 2 groups at that time, by the time this statement was made. One was those who were following God, and those who chose not to follow God. So those who were following God could have been called the sons of God, although they were not actually sons of God by their birth. Remember, Adam also is called son of God. But why was he called the son of God? Because God made him. So a person who's made can also be called a son. So the sons of God were actually those who were chosen to be on God's side, and they were the ones who agreed to the righteous principles that God had told them. Whereas the daughters were those who were born to those who had chosen the opposite side. And obviously they were pretty and beautiful. And they were beautiful on both the sides, most likely. But the question is, should you be separate? And God had, I think, told them, be separate, because otherwise you'll get caught up. But they refused to be separate, and they got caught in between. And therefore, the sons of God, who were supposed to be separate, went with the daughters of men who had already chosen to be on man's fallen side. And they formed the majority, the superwhelming majority of planet Earth. And they formed that group whom God said, no, I'll have to destroy. So the sons of God are those who were on God's side, not actually his sons, not even angels, humans who were on his side.
So I think due to our time, we've got just 2 minutes, as we're supposed to finish at 8:30. So in case nobody has got any other question. And then I think if you look at the link, or if you look at the chat instead, a link has been posted. So in case after this session, somebody has got any questions, you can use that link and ask a question, so that tomorrow we can obviously help you with that questions. So due to this, we don't have much time, but in case there is last question, I think the person can ask, or if not, we will bring this session to an end.
Let me just talk
Is there
half a minute about
okay?
the question of God. If you turn to the book of Psalms, chapter 85, you will see that humans are also called God. The word Elohim is used there. The word Elohim does not only mean God, it means a very high person, like a judge. So when the book of Psalms in chapter 85, you want to go and read it, he will say that you are gods. It's not human, it's not God, not even angels, it's humans who are being called God. So similarly in Genesis 6, when it says sons of God, it's just sons of those who are on God's side.
Okay, we will thank our Dr. Pandit for all these kind of explanations and giving answers to some doubts that we had during this conversation or this lesson. So, and we also thank him for coming and sharing his opinion and experience that he has had in his life also to us. And I think we are very grateful, and everyone here is really happy to have encountered you. So we also thank the viewers and also everyone for coming, and we are hoping to see you tomorrow. And tomorrow's topic is going to be religious literature compared, historicity. So see you tomorrow at the same time, 7 o'clock to 8:30, and we will break all these things down. Thanks for coming. Bye.